Hi and welcome to C1Risk training. Today we're going to be showing you how to launch a document request. So once you're ready to begin the evidence collection process, what you want to do is set up your evidence record so that it both kicks off a document request when you need it and in a timely fashion before your audit, and then also automate that process. So let's go into one of our evidence records. So we're just going to select one of our evidence records, and you'll note that we've already got this connected to the relevant internal control that this is going to collect evidence for. And now what we want to do is kick off this document request process. So we're just going to go into the evidence record very, very quickly. We'll go into edit, and we'll just give you a quick refresher of what we've got in here. And so obviously we want to describe the evidence that we're going to collect. So in this case, we're doing quarterly access review for the Mimecast exchange. And as you can see here, this description is what we want. And we want this to be detailed enough that it will provide enough information for the person that we're sending this request to be able to provide the correct evidence. So this is not so detailed, but we could make this much more detailed if we wanted it to be. And again, this is something that the evidence owner is going to read, and this is what's going to guide them to upload evidence. So now we want to come down. We can link the evidence record also to an asset if we want to as well. If we're doing asset-based compliance, you can see our training module to learn more about asset-based compliance. And again, of course, we want the evidence record connected to the relevant internal controls that we're validating for implementation. So now let's look at how we actually kick off the document request then. So what we want to do is first we're going to look at this evidence start date and end date. So when you're doing an audit, the auditor always requires you to provide evidence that's been created within a certain period. So this is actually what we're defining here. So we want to say, let's say we're going to be doing our audit in August. The auditor is probably going to require that we have evidence that was created sometime between January, so the beginning of the year, and then before up to a certain point before the actual audit itself. So let's pretend we're going to kick off quarterly access review for the beginning of the year. And so this would be evidence start date of January 1. And what we want to do here is we know that we're going to, for the first time, we're actually not going to start collecting the data until about a month before the audit. So if our audit was going to start in August, we'll probably set the end date for June 30th. And so then what that's going to do is on June 30th, it will kick off a document request to the evidence owner that says, hey, we're starting our quarterly access review now. And we're going to start collecting evidence for the audit in August. So we want our first piece of evidence to have been created between the 1st of January and the 30th of June. Now, I know this seems a little complex because obviously this is a date in the future. So don't forget that you can set this date in the future, but the evidence owner will not get a notification until it reaches this end date, because again, the evidence has to be created within this period. So if we set it in the future, ostensibly, it may not have been created if we send it today on May 18th, right? So we're actually going to roll this back, and we're going to pretend that this is actually quarterly access review, and we're going to kick this off manually today, and we're going to do Q1. So we're going to take this up to March 31st and set our end date. And now the next thing is our request frequency. And this is what's going to dictate how the tool automates in the future. So if we want to set this for quarterly, as this is quarterly access review, we want to connect this. We want to collect this evidence on a quarterly basis. We set that frequency for quarterly. And once this first document request goes out, what you're going to see is these dates will automatically update for the next quarter and the next quarter and the next quarter. And again, on that end date, the notification will go out to the evidence owner. Now, because this is in the past, I will not be able to automate until we get to a future state. So I will have to kick off this document request manually, which is what I'm going to do. So then I just select the person that I want to send it to, the person who's actually going to provide the evidence for me. I can select additional users if I want to, if it might be 1 or 2 people that could provide that evidence. And then next I choose whether there's a review process. And in this case, I've got an ordered review. I can just have one person approve. I can open this up to a couple of people, but in no specific order. And in this case, I'm asking for Stuart to approve and then Elizabeth to approve. And so now I'm just going to click save. And now that is ready to roll. And again, what you will normally see when this automates is the document request will automatically appear. But because I'm in the past, I'm just going to kick it off myself manually here. And now you'll see that document request was just created. And the due date 5/28/2022. Okay, so that's how you build out your document request. So again, just to refresh, this end date is when the notification goes out. So you need to be mindful that the evidence owner will not be able to provide the evidence to you. They will not even get a notification until this end date passes, okay? And the email will go out on midnight of this end date. So just bear that in mind when you're building out your document, when you're building out your process. Think about when your audit is, think about when you need to start collecting evidence, and base the end date on when you need to start collecting evidence, okay? And then everything else will automate. So now you see actually in here that the dates have already moved forward to 6/30. So that's the next quarter. And so on 6/30, another notification will go out. This time it will automate. I won't have to kick it off here. And a notification will just go out to the evidence owner. And that notification will look a little bit like this. Of course, it will be white labeled to your company, but now you see that the evidence owner has received an email with the link. They can just click on this link, log in as themselves. Oops. And the system is intelligent and it will take them exactly where they need to go. And now you can see they can just drop their files in here. They can drag and drop. They can add a URL. They can say there is no evidence. And they can also review the previous document request now. So they can see what was uploaded last time to validate it against what they need to upload this time. Then they just click submit. Then they just test, and then click submit, and we're off to the races. And we'll show you that in a separate training. All right, so that's it for today. Thanks very much. And that's how you build out an evidence collection process.